Hi, everybody. It's meteorologist Joe Cioffi on this Monday night, August 20th, 2018. I know I'm a little late getting going. If you weren't with me earlier around midday, I did a special upstream that was dedicated to basically all of Hurricane Lane, and we're going to talk a bit about that. We'll update you on the latest with regards to Hurricane Lane and also talk about the local weather. The advisory from the Central Pacific Hurricane Center is supposed to be out at about 11 o'clock Eastern Time, 5 o'clock Hawaii time. They do have a habit of getting of having it come in as close to 11 o'clock as possible, or sometimes they're a little bit late, at least with the discussion. But in the meantime, we can at least look at what's been happening during the afternoon. We've got a reconnaissance aircraft report that we could look at from late this evening and see what happens. Kill Zone was the first one on tonight, and Israel followed. Jason Schaefer was third. Dio Nankumar was fourth, and Aaron Reber finishes out the pick five today. So good evening to all of you. Let's take a look at Hurricane Lane. Top winds 125 miles an hour. Continues to head toward the west. This is the official National Hurricane Center, the Central Pacific Hurricane Center forecast from late today. And on the last advisory, this was the 11 a.m. Hawaii time advisory, 5 p.m. Eastern, 13.6 and 149.1. Top winds 130 miles an hour, so they nudged it up a bit. West winds moving west at 12, and there are no tropical storm watches up. You can see from the latest forecast that the Central Pacific Hurricane Center has kept it stronger for a longer period of time. Still a major hurricane Wednesday morning when it's forecast to be just to the west of 15 and 155. So that would put it about 240 miles south of Hilo at that point. And then that gradual turn toward the northwest, though it does weaken it to under major hurricane status by 8 a.m. Thursday. No tropical storm watches are up as of 10:32. Let's see if they do anything on the next advisory. But here's the latest, the wide satellite picture. One of the things that became evident this afternoon and this evening was the eye redeveloping and becoming well defined again. Also, notice the storm's got a bit more symmetry to it, at least from the satellite signature. Perhaps it is not really getting impacted much by the shear that is over it. There is a moderate amount of wind shear that is there, but it doesn't seem to be doing anything with regards to impacting the strength. The storm does look pretty well defined on the satellite loop, so I'm going to bring that up for you right now. Just hang on one second here. So there it is on your loop. The eye, you can just, it's kind of like a little pinprick there. The storm is, on the smallish side, but it is a little bit bigger than Hurricane Hector was. And you can see that the Hawaiian Islands is still not really anywhere close to this, relatively speaking. It's less than 600 miles from Hilo, and less than on the Big Island, and less than 800 miles to the southeast of Honolulu. So the close-up view, the close-up loop, the eye kind of elongated maybe a little bit north-south, but it's getting a bit more of a circular appearance to it. And it doesn't seem to look very ragged to me at all as it continues on a course. Looks like slightly north of due west. If you look on the loop, it does a little bit of a wobble there in the last 6 hours or so. But basically, it's on this course slightly north of due west. And Hawaii doesn't show up on this tight view. It's just outside the southern tip of the Big Island of Hawaii is at about 155 west and about 19 degrees north. So this only takes us up barely to the 19 mark at the top of the frame. Now, what did the hurricane hunters find late this afternoon and this evening? So when you look at something like this, and thank you all as always from Levi Cowan at tropicaltidbits.com. Those are the maps that you see here that we use, and we want to give him, as always, a big thank you for allowing us to use these maps on our videos and on our website. If you want to follow the track of the plane, how it flies in, actually, if you look at the top of the screen, you can see he's got that little icon of the plane, and the plane is pointing away. So that is at the end of the mission. The entrance is on the left. If you look at 15 north, right near 15 degrees north and 152 degrees west, that's where the plane makes its initial fly-in to the hurricane. And it made 3 passes. And we know that because if you see the brown dots, that is where the center is on each pass as it's moving toward the west. The first pass, it found a pressure of 964 millibars, and the white, I'll bring the scale up so you can see it a bit better. Let me, I'll center it just a little bit more on the frame here so you can see it. The whitish color, winds of 96 to 113 knots. So there is a considerable amount of very strong winds there on the first pass. So then it goes down to the lower right, comes back up to about right along 147 west and about 14 north, and then we watch it make its second pass. And on the second pass, it finds a central pressure of 964, another band of 100. So now it's coming in from the east. Another band of 96 to 113 knot winds, flies out, flies around down to the bottom here, and then it makes the third pass where it finds a central pressure of 965. And then when it comes out on the north side, flies back into those bands of 96 to 113 knots, and then up it goes, and then out it goes. So this was the last mission that the Hurricane Center flew. And with respect to the models here, from what they are showing late today, this is one of the newer runs. You can see the hurricane tracking models with their tracks. Looks like, you know, you do have a cluster of them that bring the hurricane very close to the Hawaiian Islands, and actually some of them bring that right over some of the islands, including a couple of them that take it right over the island of Oahu. Let me please emphasize, do not use this map to make any kind of decision if you're watching from Hawaii. All we're doing here is showing you a collection of hurricane models and how they see the storm tracking. And if you notice, there's actually many more tracks that take the system further offshore, and some of them take it far enough offshore where the land impacts would probably be minimal, and the impacts would be mainly for the coastal waters. A lot has to do with the fact that after about 36 hours, some of the models make a very sharp right-hand turn, and others have a more gradual turn to the right, and therefore it winds up getting further to the west before it makes that turn, and then moves north-northwest from there. The other issue, of course, is what exactly are we going to be dealing with in terms of strength at that point. And here are the models that show you the strength of this. We do have a couple of them that keep it actually at category 3, category 4 right through, but the vast majority of them start to weaken this down after 72 hours. And as we get into time by 96 hours, a lot of them just have it at a category 1, and then you have a number of them that actually weaken it to tropical storm strength once we get past 108 hours. There is a history of storms weakening rapidly as they approach the Hawaiian Islands, and the reason for that is that the ocean water temperatures there are relatively cooler than where the storm is now. Where the storm is now, the ocean water temperatures are running at about 28, 29 degrees Celsius, actually probably closer to 28. But near the Hawaiian Islands, the ocean water temperatures are on the order of about 26, 27 degrees Celsius, so around or just over the 80-degree mark. That's a subtle enough difference to cause some weakening for a system that's not moving very fast. And then the other issue is, and I want to go back to that satellite loop I showed you before, but if you look toward the western part of the Hawaiian Islands and go south and west of there, you'll notice that there's clouds. The cloud cover is moving southwest to northeast. And at the same time, you've got the lower clouds that are moving from east to west. There is a zone there of relatively strong southwest winds. And in fact, if you go a little bit east of there, you can actually still see some high clouds moving southwest to northeast, just to the west of the big island of Hawaii. So if that area of strong upper air winds remains, you are going to add also to the equation the fact that wind shear is going to become a big issue here, and that could weaken this system faster than you might think. It's hard to imagine when you look at this at first glance and you think, we've got this Category 3 hurricane. It could still be a Category 3 hurricane when it's inside 300 miles of the island. And then by the time it gets close, it could wind up just being a tropical storm. And that assumes, by the way, we don't even know yet what track are we going to have here. Are we going to have a storm that's going to take a right-hand turn rather soon, or is it going to take longer and lessen the impact? So this is part of the great uncertainty that exists with respect to Hurricane Lane. Very important that we pay attention to the model runs going forward. The afternoon GFS run, the late afternoon GFS run, still has this same idea. It's one of the models that makes the right turn sooner. And here at this point, still a hurricane, though probably not as strong as what it is now. And then it approaches the big island and then begins to weaken very rapidly as it makes that approach. The pressure rises from 967 millibars. It's at 960, measured on the recon, we saw 965. So it's at 967 millibars as it's approaching the island. And then when it gets to the island, the pressure rises to 1,001. That's a very significant weakening over a 24-hour period. And the winds from this, and still, if you look, I put the map up here that's showing with the GFS shows with the wind field, it would bring certainly gales to the easternmost islands of Hawaii. And then it turns it back to the left and kind of straddles the islands there, and then eventually just sort of weakens. At this point, it's probably either a weak tropical storm or more than likely even a tropical depression. Again, this is the GFS's one model viewpoint. It would be important that we look at the European, which still remains the furthest south of all the models. And it's not even a close pass on the European. The European takes much longer to make that right-hand turn. And we should point out that the European model, usually with these tropical systems, at least in the past, has been among the better performers, even though it has not done well with many storms, tropical and non-tropical, for a while. It is still a model that we tend to respect. Most weather people do tend to respect the outperformance of the European in the long haul, so we can't ignore the fact that the ridge to the north, the upper high that's to the north of the Hawaiian Islands, will be strong enough to deflect this, or at least delay the turn to the northwest long enough so that it would happen when it still far enough to the west of the islands to minimize the impact. So we continue to just kind of watch and wait and see where models go with this in the next 2 days. I mean, at some point, they're going to probably have to make some kind of decision about whether they're going to have to put a tropical storm or hurricane watch for the land areas of the Hawaiian Islands. The coastal waters are a different story because we know that there's going to be impacts to the marine interests from around Hawaii, both north and south, but particularly south. Maybe not a little bit less so in northern areas. But again, we'll wait to see what the Central Pacific Hurricane Center, their new advisory should be coming out in the next 15 minutes. So now we'll just jump over to what's going on with respect to the local weather or the weather across the United States. And the one dominating feature tonight, and you can see the counterclockwise turning of the radar echoes around the Great Lakes as low pressure heads there. You've got a cold front that's producing some very strong thunderstorms in the western parts of the Ohio and Tennessee Valley, and then on down into Mississippi and northern Louisiana. So that front is pushing eastward. And in the meantime, in the east, where we've had this onshore flow, thanks to a high in the Maritimes, it's setting up a warm front to our south. And in the warm sector, we're seeing some showers and thunderstorms in the Carolinas and down through Georgia and through eastern Ohio, and also starting to see showers break out ahead of that warm front. That will be moving northeastward, and weather conditions will probably begin to deteriorate across the northern mid-Atlantic and northeast during the day tomorrow. Now, to the NAM model we go, and we'll put the precip on and let the NAM take us on its ride. This is the new NAM, by the way, that just came out, so we're getting a fresh look at a new weather model. And there's your low in northern Indiana, and you can see as we go through the day on Tuesday, you start to see showers breaking out across the Carolinas, Virginia, and Maryland, and they move up into Pennsylvania and New Jersey. Nothing overly impressive, it seems. And by the time we get to Wednesday morning, they're out to the east, and the cold front approaches. And with that, there are some showers and thunderstorms that develop. Looks like a narrowish band that develops and moves on through in the northeast. And behind it is the big payoff. And this is, I think, is going to make a lot of folks happy because we all are waiting for a nice, significant drop in the dew points, and we're going to get it, folks. No question. We're going to see a really nice shot of dry air coming in to much of the eastern United States. I'm just going to back it up as these dew points start to climb in the mid-Atlantic and northeast back into the 70s and upper 60s. The front comes through on Wednesday, and then after that, look at this large area of dew points in the 40s and 50s that spread across everywhere from the use the borders that run along, say, western Minnesota, western Iowa, western Missouri, western Arkansas. You start to get these 40s and 50s dew points coming into the Great Lakes, the mid-Atlantic states, and the Northeast. Look at the dew points down in Virginia and West Virginia, 40s and low 50s. You've got 50s dew points down into northern Georgia, northern Mississippi. I mean, this is a really significant push of dry air for this time of year, and just delightful for Thursday and Friday in the east with dew points in the 40s and 50s. And as I said, I can't wait for this to happen because I'm really looking for some humidity relief. And when you look at the anomalies and the temperature anomalies and how they play out, going into Wednesday, until that front comes through, we're seeing you're going to see some above average temperatures. But then Thursday, notice that large area that's below normal and even well below normal temperatures out in parts of the plains, Nebraska and Kansas and western Missouri, western Iowa, well below normal, talking 10 or more degrees below average. And now this is at Friday morning, a large air, most of the Northeast, except for the northern parts of the Northeast, which are a little above normal. But you can see the large area of below normal temperatures, even below average temperatures, picking some impact going on in parts of Florida. Well, they're going to have the front to the north, so there could probably be some clouds and maybe some shower issues that'll keep temperatures down in that particular area. So with respect to precip, and we'll take a look here. We'll look at the late afternoon GFS's view of all of this. And there's your low. that is up in northern Missouri here. It moves into northern Indiana. There probably, by the way, will be some severe weather tomorrow in parts of um, Ohio, well, at least through Ohio and into Pennsylvania, perhaps late in the day, western PA, Ohio, West Virginia, and eastern Kentucky. There's your system in the moving through the east. I don't think there's going to be much of a severe weather threat in the east, if only because of the fact that you're going to have some showers with the warm front later Tuesday and Tuesday night. So that might kind of rob a little bit of the energy along the East Coast when the front comes through later in the day. I don't know how much daytime heating you're going to be able to get out of this. And after that, with the front gone, here comes that high, really nice push of dry air. This when you look at the red lines, the thicknesses, the thicknesses of the thickness of the atmosphere. This is, we could see the coolness of the air. The lower the thickness number is, and that's a pretty low number, 552 thickness. Those of you who are real, weather followers would know that the 540 thickness is that famous rain snow line. Well, 552 thickness coming into New York State and northern Pennsylvania in the latter part of August is a fairly significant push of cool air, cool, dry air. Now, once that high moves out, we're going to start to warm things up again. And we do go back into a bit of a ridge position here when we look in the long range. Because once this upper trough pulls out, the upper ridge is going to try and pop in again. So here's our system for Tuesday and Wednesday. You can see that deep, relatively deep trough in the east lifts out and weakens as it moves northeastward, and then you start to get a ridge that begins to build in the eastern part of the United States. The only thing is that the westerlies are far enough south where there probably will be a limit as to how warm it will get. And there will be some cooler air to the north that won't be far away, and depending on where the high is, may try and bleed some of that cooler air down. So that could cut the warm up a bit. The ridge shifts to the central Gulf states, so you're always going to be basically on the edge of the westerlies across the northeast. But it will also be very warm underneath that ridge and on the northern periphery of that ridge, particularly around the Great Lakes. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a couple of days, so some 90-degree temperatures return in a pattern like this. But the ridge is far enough west, and that jet stream coming out of Canada still pretty close in the northeast as we go into the first days of September. So we're going to probably have to watch the long range models down the road for possibilities that there could be some shortwave troughs in here that model's not seeing at the moment that may come into play. One other thing I want to point to is I'm going to go back to the European model, and then we're going to come back to Hurricane Lane. The European today is starting at least to signal perhaps that there could be some action in the main development region of the tropics as we go through the latter part of the forecast period. It does have a couple of waves coming off the African coast, and here's one this is for next Sunday, so it's a ways away. You do see it does print out an L there, so that probably is representative of a tropical wave. It actually has a closed isobar around it, so it might have a little bit of a weak circulation with it. And you do see two of them here as we get toward month's end. So it seems like the main development region will have at least a couple of tropical waves that will be at the very least less anemic than some of the other waves that we've seen. And the Canadian model kind of has the same idea as well. So perhaps this is a signal that the Atlantic tropics are going to wake up in the latter part of the forecast period as we get toward the month's end and going into the first days of September. It's got to wake up at some time, and we're not going to go through the whole hurricane season uh, the way it's been. And we've seen 5 storms so far. They have all been, non-events, particularly Debbie and Ernesto, which formed in the Central Atlantic. So I would be I would be pretty shocked that if we, wind up not seeing, if the pattern we've been in now in terms of the tropics continues into the month of September. It's gotta get going someplace. And the Hurricane Center forecasting that we will see, uh, perhaps 8 or 9 more systems going forward. I think that's a reasonable type of forecast given the timeline. You could see storms form when they do get underway. They could come relatively quickly, and you suddenly will have like 2 or 3 of them running around. So don't be too surprised if that winds up happening. Okay, I'm going to come back to the board, and in the meantime, I'm going to also take a look at to see if there's a new advisory from the Central Pacific Hurricane Center. I'll kill another minute, and we'll then I'll go take that look. So let me just give a quick hello to some folks that haven't been here for a while or are new. Box 505, Lori Kepa, nice to see you here. Daily Tropical Updates is on tonight. Timothy Veltman, one of the regulars. Aaron Schaefer. Dark Truth is late to the party. No, there's no hurricane headed for New York. Okay, not heading here. No. Stephen White, hoping that autumn comes early. Well, that shot from the end of this week will certainly be a nice sign of that. And weather Enlo, you're going to get your low humidity break. Don't start asking me about tropical storms for Norfolk, Virginia, please. Thank you, A&M Weather, for the hitting the super chat tonight. Thank you so much for the very kind words. Trying to do these videos as best I can, and trying to make them a little more seamless. And 27 Nor'easter, nice to see you here. And thank you, Weather Enlo, really appreciate it. And maybe David Schwartz will finally have a rain-free weekend. I think 5 out of the last 9 weekends here in the New York, New Jersey, Long Island, Connecticut, Hudson Valley, Eastern Pennsylvania area, especially the Eastern Pennsylvania area, have had some rain in them. Okay, let's see what Miami's up to. I'm sorry, Hawaii is up to. Let's see what they are going to tell us if they've got the new advisory out. And let's take a look. And they do. 13.8 and 150.3. Top winds 130 miles an hour, moving west at 12. We do not have, is this the new? I don't have the new map yet. So let me just pull up the public advisory. They have not put up any coastal watches or warnings for the Hawaiian Islands at this time on the public advisory. It is, they do say, as they've been saying on the last several advisories, interest in the Hawaiian Islands and across the northwestern islands should continue to monitor the progress of Hurricane Lane, which makes sense. Lowest pressure from the reconnaissance aircraft, 964 millibars, which we saw, to 8.47 inches on your home barometer. I'm going to just take a look also. They do have the marine advisory, so I can at least figure out the positions here. So 17.9 and 157.6. And then from there, and at that point, they have it at 95 knots, so a category 2 at just about 18. And let's round it off. So 18 north and 158. And then they take it to 20 and 159. So let's see. So 18 and 158. Let's come to, I'm going to bring the map up. And all right, so give me 1 second here, folks. So this track, I'm doing everything here on the fly. So let's see. All right. Okay, so I'm going to bring back, this is the old forecast map. Hopefully they'll update this soon. As I said, they usually have a habit of doing it late, but 18, roughly 18 and 158. Honolulu is up at around 21. So this is, this would be on their new track, would be about 150 or so miles south of Honolulu at that point, and 20 and 159 is still well south. So they're still doing this hook to the northwest, but they still keep the center of the hurricane south of the Hawaiian Islands on their latest forecast. I think that would make sense. That with the new model cycle now beginning, it's probably just wise to wait for the overnights, and then we'll see what they do with this tomorrow morning. So not really too much change. Those of you that are watching from Hawaii, if you'd like, I did do a video earlier today where the whole thing was about Hurricane Lane, and I was able to, I spent the time discussing the upper air in greater detail. So if you'd like, you can check that out on my video library from earlier and take a look at that. David Schwartz, thank you so much for hitting Super Chat. You're the best. Thank you, sir. Stephen White, we are getting cool fat. Okay. We are getting cool fall this year. Well, I kind of hope we do. It would be a nice change from what we've seen the last few years. Briefly touched 80 today in northwest New Jersey, says Cullen, and that would be because you probably had some breaks of sun. We had clouds here all day, and it got to about mid-70s, and that was just about it. Scott Briller asking me, will I be on WPIX this weekend? Yes, I will. I will be on WPIX on both Saturday and Sunday. So if you're in the New York area, that's channel 11. Otherwise, you can probably pick it up on their website or online because they do stream the weathercast. So you can take a look at me if you've never seen my air work on television. You can take a look there. Israel. Let me just come back to you before I just saw your latest question. I'm going to just go back to want to see. You're not a fan of the long range. Can you give your thoughts on temperature and precip during the fall? Well, you kind of answered your own question because I'm not a fan of the long range. There's been a tendency the last few years for big ridges to develop in the east during the early part of the fall. We're going to obviously need to see that pattern break. There's been this tendency for troughs in the east, so maybe this year it'll be a bit of a different story. We'll see, but I don't know. I'm not a big long range fan. In terms of forecasting, I shouldn't say I'm a long range fan. I'm not a fan of long range forecasting. You can tell it's almost 11 o'clock at night here because I'm getting tired. I've never been able to get my head around it, and that there are a lot of folks that handle it really well. So I kind of leave it up to them. I like to stay inside the 2-week time frame. That works much better. I did the 8.2 earthquake in Fiji. I did hear something about it, fallen angel. I didn't really have a chance to read up on it to see what the details were. But yes, I did. I did hear about it. My understanding is that it was offshore and there wasn't any damage. But don't quote me on it. As I said, I didn't really give it a good look. Fall foliage coming early this year. Well, I'll tell you something. The wetness here. I know when we had last year, it took forever for the leaves to come down because it stayed warm for so long. So I guess the factors this year maybe might lead to perhaps a more normal fall foliage season. We'll see. Let's see what happens after this trough pulls out. We get this shot of nice cool air at the end of the week, and what happens going into next week with maybe this is going to be the last one last summertime burst with a bit of ridging in the eastern part of the United States, and then the trough in the east winds up coming back. I've always been a fan of the trend being your friend, so the trend has been for troughs to be in the eastern part of the United States. Record low daytime temperatures are coming to the UK later this week. David Allen says, and some forecasting temperatures only hitting a high of 50s and lows in the 40s by night. Okay, well, you know what, David? Let's take a look. We got some time here. Let's take a look at Europe and see what's going on because I have not looked very much lately at what's been going on across the pond, as we say. So let's take a look. We'll bring up the GFS. I'm gonna just, this is gonna be just a cursory look here. I'm not gonna have a chance to go into detail, so I'd be curious as to see what's going on. So we do have what looks like a weather front coming through on Wednesday. And well, you know what? You look at where the isobars are coming from. Yeah, we got the 540 thickness coming down. So that is probably going to be some kind of a cool shot there. And you look, there's actually even some snow over Iceland. Low pressure moves up into northern France at the end of the week. So there is a bit of a cool shot there. And then that pulls out and gets another shot of cooler air as we work through the last days of August. So let me just take a look at the upper air. Okay. Upper air we go. Make that a little bigger for you. And let me run back. I'm sure there's probably some kind of troughing coming in. Yeah, that's a pretty, that's a nice looking trough there that's coming into England and Ireland and into northwestern Europe. So yeah, that's a pretty, that is cold. You know, for this time of year, that is very chilly. Wow, that's late August. That's a pretty chilly shot of air that's coming down into Europe after all the heat that you have, and now you got that. Then there's another weaker trough as we move toward the last days of August, and then back to a big ridge position in the longer range as a low cuts off down in Italy. The temperature anomalies will probably show this pretty well. Yeah, look at that. And at the end of the week, let me back it up. You can watch it go from being above normal to below normal to much below normal. Temperatures running almost 8 to 12 degrees Celsius below average. So you're talking about 13 to almost 20 degrees below normal in some places. That's a pretty decent, respectable shot of chilly air. And as we go through the weekend, below normal across France, northern Spain, all of Western Europe, down into Italy, and very much below normal across Norway and Sweden. So you, David, yeah, I would not disagree with the assessment that you put up there with respect to what may be coming for your neck of the woods. Should be a nice big change from what you had. Kato in Hawaii, aloha to you. Which reminds me at this point, I think we can now bring me back. Well, actually, let's see if they updated this yet. And they did not. Okay. They usually were at 11:08 Eastern Time. The Central Pacific Hurricane Center puts out their hurricane discussion, their technical discussion, a little bit late. But if you go to the Central Pacific Hurricane Center's website, and just to make it easier for you, that is, I can even I'll put the link up that'll take you straight to Hurricane Lane's page. And they do have the actual discussion up. So hang on one second here, folks. Here's the link to the Central Pacific's page, so you can look at and read all the latest advisories. I'm going to very quickly just kind of go through what they're saying here. I got to make this print a little bigger. The eyes are not there. So, okay, so like the first paragraph basically talks about the reconnaissance aircraft flight that was, and the satellite. Actually, they don't even talk too much about the reconnaissance aircraft in there. It looks like they're talking about, the satellite imagery and the satellite estimates. Some of them have risen, showing a more intense cyclone, but they've left it at 115 knots for this advisory. Motion is 280 at 10, so slightly north of due west at about 12 miles an hour or 10 knots. Subtropical ridge to the north. As the ridge weakens, leaves a weakness to the north of Lane. This will allow the cyclone to begin gaining latitude a bit more quickly by 48 hours. And then they go into the whole struggle of the models. The GFS and the NavGem model are much weaker with the ridge and keep Lane away from the westerly shear longer. That would mean for a stronger system further to the right with a bigger threat to the Hawaiian Islands, if that is correct, followed by a turn toward the west late in the period as it moves away. He says they say there do not appear to be any clear signals at this point to suggest which track to favor. So we continue to follow the consensus guidance, which is down the middle consensus, and but this is important, is down the middle of a quote, an uncomfortably large guidance envelope. So in other words, there are so many solutions in some, in that will make a huge difference in terms of what would happen in terms of the outcome for Hawaii, that there's no way you're going to be able to make any kind of assessment here as far as what the actual track is going to be. So we're still going to be in watch and wait mode until we get these models to finally decide, is there going to be enough of a weakness of that upper ridge to get Lane to turn to the right sooner, or is that ridge going to be stronger, longer, and deflected a little bit more to the west? Weak to moderate southeasterly shear, sea surface temperatures near 28 C, allowing this Lane to maintain its current intensity for another 24 hours. And then, of course, they point to the increasing shear leading to gradual weakening, a gradual weakening trend at first, and then a more rapid weakening trend after 72 hours as Lane approaches the stronger winds aloft. I showed you on the satellite, folks. There are strong wind shear. There is strong wind shear south of the Hawaiian Islands, and as you go west. So if that wind shear doesn't relax, Lane is going to weaken and could weaken faster than you think. Regardless of whether it makes that right turn faster or not, the shear is probably the other important factor here with respect to what we're dealing with in terms of intensity. Any other way? Oh, now regarding to Super Chat, I don't know why you can't seem to access it. The message it gives you is that you did put it up before. In-app purchases are not enabled for the current user. I'm guessing that you probably have to enable app purchases on Google Play in order to use the Super Chat. I'll give you another option, and I appreciate it. There's a PayPal. You know what? I'll just put it up. I do have a PayPal on my website. So for those of you, if you can't do the Super Chat option, if PayPal is an option for you, I will just put it up here. Okay. Okay if you use it, and okay if you don't. It's there if you want to. And thank you very much, by the way, for asking. Not sure what kind of trees they are, Timothy. Very tall and can forecast from my backyard a coating to an inch of leaves likely, but seriously a coating at least in part. I haven't seen too much of a change yet. I did notice one of my trees browning up, but I think it might be because one of the branches might be partially broken. I didn't give it a good look, but Cyan Hernandez, very quickly, no changes in Hurricane Lane. And with respect to our weather here in the east, we've got a nice push of dry air coming, just getting into some showers and maybe some thunderstorms later Tuesday night into Wednesday before the front moves through. And then we've got Thursday, Friday, and Saturday with low dew points and dry air. And Thursday and Friday, especially with pleasant temperatures, probably a large area of the Northeast into the northern mid-Atlantic won't be getting out of the 70s. And boy, will that feel just great. All right, folks, been a long day with two live streams and also my library talk, which I gave this evening at the Sachem Library in my neck of the woods on Long Island in Holbrook, New York, which went extremely well. I was planning on trying to live stream that, but I couldn't do it because I wasn't able to get my computer up. I had to use theirs. So maybe next time. There'll be another library chat for me in September on a Sunday, and I'll see if I can do it from there because this way we can sort of kill two birds with one stone, I guess. We'll have a library audience and we'll have a YouTube audience going at the same time. But busy day, live stream at noon from Lane. If you haven't seen it, it's in the video library, so just go take a look. It's only about Hurricane Lane, and it gets into the upper air in greater detail than what I was able to do tonight. And that's pretty much it. Got website posts on meteorologistjoecioffi.com, so do take a look at those. And tomorrow I'll be back on a normal schedule, which means that we'll probably live stream maybe around 6 o'clock Eastern time after the 5 o'clock advisory is out. And also the Joe and Joe show will be back tomorrow night, as Joe and I have been apart for the last 9 days, but we're both working tomorrow night. So we will have the Joe and Joe weather show, and we'll talk about all these things. And that is on my Facebook page, Meteorologist Joe Cioffi, or on Joe's Facebook page, which is Joe Rayo Weather. And we usually do that at around 9 o'clock Eastern time. Box 505, has the summer overall been above or below normal temperatures for Long Island? You know what? I don't know. It's a good question. And of course, it's going to really depend on where on Long Island you are with respect to that. So I'll just give it a quick look. We'll look at Islip, which is right in the middle, and it's one of the reporting stations that I can easily access weather summaries for. So let me just bring that up. And okay, so for August, I'm sorry, for the month of July, the average was, at Islip anyway, was 1.1 degrees above normal. And for June, the average was 71.7, which is 0.3 degrees above average. And so far for the month of August, let's see where we are. And for August so far, we are actually for Islip anyway, we are 4.5 degrees above average. Now, those numbers are going to come down. This is through, not including today. So we're going to, that number is probably going to come down this week because of the weather that we're going to experience and the temperatures that we'll experience at the end of the week. So that number will come down a bit. So the summer, at least at Islip, has been above average. I'm just going to look real quick at New York City just for comparison. New York City right now is running for the month 3 degrees above average for August. And for July, it was July was 1.1 degrees above average, and for June, it was also 0.3 degrees above average. So it looks like the summer temperatures are going to finish a little bit above average when you take the 3 months and average it out, maybe a degree or a degree and a half above average. But on the other hand, in terms of 90-degree days, we had probably an average number of 90-degree highs. And we didn't really have that many days where the high temperatures were overly excessive. You know, for me, I mean, this summer was okay. Temperature-wise, a little bit above average, but it wasn't crazy. And we didn't really have any extended periods of heat and of heat. We had definitely extended periods of humidity. But as far as heat is concerned, you would we had some stretches where we had 3 days of 90-degree plus. I'm not a fan of the 3-day heat wave rule. I've said that many times. For me, it's 5 days. And at least for New York City, I know Newark did a 5-day stretch a couple of times. I don't think Central Park did, though, and Islip certainly did not. So it worked for me. The humidity, I could have left more, would have been nice to have less of that. Lakewood or Tom's River winter snow totals, Israel. I'll have to do some digging on that. Your best bet is probably to shoot a message over to Mount Holly, to the National Weather Service in Mount Holly, and ask them, because there are some sources for snow. There are a couple of Rutgers keeps a pretty wide, extensive record of snow amounts in the state of New Jersey. So you might want to look there as well. I'll see if I can find something in terms of a link, but I'm just going to have to do a little research. If I forget, just remind me. And yeah, Dio, we just went through the 11 o'clock advisory, so you're gonna have to just play it on the replay on the video. And hi to Wayne S, who has joined the crowd late. All right, folks, have a great evening. Thanks those of you tonight who hit the super chat button. ANM Weather and David Schwartz, I appreciate it. And of course, those of you who have used the Amazon or Ebates links that are on the descriptor for this video, thank you very much. We're a participant in the Amazon Services LLC program, which is an affiliate advertising program designed to provide a means for this channel to earn fees to linking to Amazon or Ebates and their affiliated sites. So thank you for those of you who've done that. And by the way, you don't have to buy, if you do use those links, especially the Amazon link, the stuff that comes up there are just suggested things that I looked at. But if you just use the search bar to find whatever it is you're looking for, that works. So again, thank you very much. It's easy, and it's a great way to support what I'm doing. And I get a couple of cigars out of it, which is never a bad thing. Have a great evening, everybody. We've got I was planning to keep this under 20 minutes tonight, and 51 minutes on a live stream, and coming up on 11:30 Eastern time. We'll update you on all the goings on in the world of weather and the latest on Hurricane Lane come sometime on Tuesday. Figure maybe around 6 o'clock in the evening Eastern time. Have a great night, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.